Admiral Jake Morrison stood in the command center of Luna Station, watching the stars through the massive viewing window. Earth hung below like a blue marble, peaceful and quiet. But Jake knew that peace was about to end. The communication screen flickered to life, showing the face of Ambassador Thexaval from the Galactic Council. The alien's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, and his mouth parts clicked together in what humans had learned meant displeasure. "Admiral Morrison." Thexaval's voice came through the translator with its usual cold tone. "The Galactic Council has made a decision regarding humanity's place in our civilization." Jake kept his face neutral, but his heart started beating faster. Behind him, Commander Lisa Hart stepped closer to listen. Lisa had been Jake's advisor for 10 years, and she could read his moods better than anyone. "What decision?" Jake asked. Thexval's image leaned forward. "Resolution 2847 Alpha has been passed by unanimous vote. Humanity must surrender all military vessels to Council control within 60 standard days. Your colonial defense forces will be disbanded. Human expansion beyond your current territories is forbidden." The words hit Jake like a physical blow. 50 years ago, when humanity first met the Galactic Council, they had been welcomed as the newest members of galactic civilization. The aliens had seemed friendly, helpful even. They shared technology and knowledge. They helped humans build their first colony ships and establish settlements on distant worlds. But things had changed over the years. The helpful advice became strict rules. The technology sharing became one-sided. The friendly guidance became suspicious oversight. "Now this. You're demanding we give up our freedom," Jake said quietly. "We are ensuring galactic peace," Thexval replied. "Humanity has become unpredictable. Your species expands too quickly. You ask too many questions. You influence other species in ways that concern the Council." Lisa stepped forward. "What if we refuse?" Thexval's 4 eyes fixed on her. "Then the Council will take action to protect galactic stability. Your choice is simple. Comply willingly or be forced to comply." The transmission ended, leaving Jake and Lisa staring at a blank screen. "Sir," Lisa said softly, "we need to contact Captain Tucker immediately." Captain Ben Tucker was 3 weeks away from Earth, commanding the exploration vessel Meridian in the Outer Rim territories. His mission was supposed to be simple: map new systems and look for suitable colony sites. But Tucker had discovered something the Council didn't want humans to know about. Jake activated the secure communication array. It took several minutes for Tucker's face to appear on screen, the signal weak across the vast distance. "Admiral," Tucker said, his expression grim, "I was about to contact you. We've intercepted Council communications. They're planning something big." "We know," Jake replied. "They just delivered an ultimatum. Complete surrender or they'll force us to comply." Tucker nodded. "That makes sense now. Sir, what we found out here changes everything. The Council has been lying to us from the beginning." Over the next hour, Tucker transmitted his findings. The Meridian had discovered evidence that the Galactic Council had been systematically suppressing younger species for thousands of years. They would invite new civilizations to join, offer help and guidance, then slowly tighten control until the species became dependent servants. But humanity was different. Humans learned too fast, adapted too quickly, and worst of all, they helped other suppressed species advance. The Council had discovered human scientists working secretly with the Quillen, a rabbit-like species the Council kept at medieval technology levels. They found human engineers teaching the aquatic Meridae how to build spacecraft. 12 other primitive species were showing rapid advancement with human assistance. "They're scared," Tucker said. "For the first time in their history, they're facing a species they can't control." Lisa pulled up a holographic display showing human settlements across the galaxy. 847 worlds, each one thriving with human colonies. Massive orbital stations, advanced terraforming projects. A network of trade routes that had become essential to galactic commerce. "Sir," she said, "if they move against us, it won't just be a military action. Half the galaxy's economy depends on human activity now." Jake studied the display for a long time. His mind worked through possibilities, strategies, contingencies. Finally, he made his decision. "Contact President Rodriguez," he ordered. "Tell her I'm requesting an emergency session with the United Earth Assembly." 2 days later, Jake stood before the assembled representatives of humanity's government. President Claire Rodriguez sat at the center of the semicircular chamber, her expression serious as Jake finished his briefing. "The situation is clear," Jake concluded. The Galactic Council sees us as a threat to their control. They want us broken, scattered, and dependent. They're offering us the choice between willing slavery and forced slavery. Representative Sam Parker from the Mars colonies stood up. What about negotiation? Surely we can find a middle ground. There is no middle ground, Jake replied. They've made their position clear. Submit or be crushed. President Rodriguez leaned forward. Admiral, what do you recommend? Jake had been dreading this moment, but he knew there was only one answer. We refuse their ultimatum, and we prepare for the consequences. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some representatives argued for compliance, fearing the destruction that would come from defying the council. Others demanded immediate military action, but Jake raised his hand for silence. There's a third option, he said. Captain Tucker has identified several uninhabited regions beyond the galactic rim, territory the council has never explored or claimed. We could relocate. The idea hung in the air like a challenge. Leave behind everything they had built? Abandon 50 years of progress? President Rodriguez stood slowly. You're talking about the largest evacuation in human history. Yes, ma'am. But consider the alternative. If we stay and fight, we might win some battles, but we'll lose the war. The Council has 14 member species and thousands of years of military experience. If we submit, we become slaves. But if we leave, we keep our freedom, Rodriguez finished. The vote took 3 hours. When it was done, humanity had made its choice. The next morning, President Rodriguez announced that humanity would attend one final council session. The galaxy expected to witness humanity's surrender. Instead, they were about to learn that some species would rather walk away than kneel down. Jake stood again at his viewing window, watching Earth turn slowly below. Soon he might be looking at it for the last time, but he felt no sadness, only determination. The Council had taught humanity their place in the galaxy. Soon they would learn that humanity's place was wherever humans chose to make it. The Council chambers on Nexus Prime had never been more crowded. Representatives from 14 alien civilizations filled the massive circular hall, their various forms creating a bizarre collection of shapes and colors. The air hummed with translation devices working overtime to convert dozens of languages into something resembling communication. Admiral Jake Morrison walked into the chamber flanked by Dr. Alex Webb and Colonel Maria Santos. The human delegation was small compared to the massive alien entourages, but Jake noticed how every eye in the room followed their movement. The Corvaxi delegation dominated one section of the chamber. Their warrior culture showed in their scarred armor and the weapons they carried despite council protocols. General Thakmore, their leader, watched the humans with obvious hunger. Jake knew the Corvaxi had been eyeing human colonies for years. Across the chamber, the hegemony of Zal displayed their wealth through elaborate robes and floating holographic displays. They controlled most of the galaxy's trade networks and had grown rich from human commerce. Their representative, Trade Prince Velnash, seemed confident that economics would force human compliance. At the center of the chamber sat the Council's ruling body. Prime Arbiter Velthon, an ancient being whose species had founded the Council millennia ago, raised one of his 6 arms for silence. We gather today to witness humanity's acceptance of Resolution 2847 Alpha, Velthon announced. The human delegation will sign the surrender documents and accept Council protection. Murmurs of satisfaction rippled through the alien delegates. This was exactly what they had expected. The upstart humans would finally be put in their proper place. Jake stood and walked to the central platform. The surrender documents waited on a crystalline pedestal, glowing with official seals and legal bindings. Every alien in the chamber leaned forward, eager to witness human submission. Instead, Jake turned his back on the documents. Honored delegates, he began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics. We have reviewed your resolution. We have also reviewed something else. Dr. Webb activated a holographic projector, the chamber filled with images and data streams, showing communication intercepts, trade agreements, and historical records spanning centuries. For 50 years, Jake continued, humanity believed we were junior partners in galactic civilization. We thought the Council was helping us grow and develop. We were wrong. The first hologram showed translation records. Side-by-side comparisons revealed how human diplomatic messages had been subtly altered, making them sound more aggressive and demanding than the originals. Every word we spoke was twisted, Jake said. Every proposal we made was modified to seem threatening. You made us appear dangerous to justify your fears. General Throckmore stood up, his armor clattering. Human accusations mean nothing. You have no proof of deliberate— Colonel Santos, Jake interrupted. Maria stepped forward and activated another set of holograms. These showed financial records, resource allocation charts, and shipping manifests. Every trade agreement was structured to create dependency, she reported. Human colonies were sold specific technologies while others were restricted. Raw materials flowed out of human space while finished goods flowed in. Classic economic subjugation disguised as partnership. Trade Prince Velnash's floating displays flickered nervously. These are standard galactic commerce practices. Nothing improper about— Dr. Webb, Jake said calmly. Alex activated the final set of holograms. These showed something that made the entire chamber fall silent. Detailed plans for the division of human territory. This was intercepted from Council Secure Communications 3 months ago, Alex announced. Complete plans for partitioning human space after forced compliance. The Korvaxi were to receive our military colonies. The Zal hegemony would take our trade worlds. Other species would divide the remaining territories. The hologram zoomed in to show specific assignments. Korvaxi forces positioned to occupy human military bases. Zal corporate fleets ready to seize orbital stations. Transport ships prepared to relocate human populations to designated zones. We were never meant to be partners, Jake said, his voice growing cold. We were being fattened for slaughter. Prime Arbiter Velthon's 6 arms waved frantically. These are merely contingency plans. Standard preparation for all possible outcomes, including the outcome where we refuse to comply? Jake asked. The chamber erupted in chaos. Alien delegates shouted at each other in their native languages. Translation devices screeched as they tried to keep up with the overlapping conversations. Jake waited for the noise to die down before speaking again. You demanded that humanity learn its place in the galaxy, he said. We have learned. Our place is not here. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small device. With a simple press of a button, the holographic displays changed. Now they showed human space in real time. Massive ships gathering around Earth. Colony worlds going dark one by one, orbital stations powering down. The evacuation began 3 days ago, Jake announced. By the time this session ends, the first wave of human ships will already be beyond your borders. General Throckmore's eyes widened. You cannot simply leave. Your colonies owe taxes. Your ships carry council property. Your people have obligations. Our obligations were to a partnership, Jake replied. Since no partnership exists, neither do our obligations. Trade Prince Velnash's displays now showed plummeting market values across human space. The economic damage will be catastrophic. Entire trade networks depend on human activity. Then you should have thought of that before planning to divide our territory among yourselves, Colonel Santos said sharply. Prime Arbiter Velthon struggled to maintain control. The Council forbids this action. Human ships will be stopped at the borders. Jake smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. With what ships? Your fleets are scattered across the galaxy maintaining your empire. Our evacuation corridors are already secured. The truth was starting to sink in. The aliens had spent so much effort planning to control humanity that they had never considered the possibility that humans might simply leave. Their fleets were positioned to invade, not to stop an exodus. You're making a terrible mistake, Velthon said desperately. Humanity needs the Council's protection. The galaxy is dangerous for isolated species. More dangerous than staying here? Jake asked. You just showed us plans to enslave our entire civilization. He turned to address the entire chamber. You taught us that the galaxy was not big enough for species that refused to know their place. You were right. We're finding a bigger galaxy. Jake walked back to the surrender documents on their pedestal. For a moment, the aliens thought he might reconsider. Instead, he picked up the crystalline tablet and dropped it. The document shattered on the chamber floor. Consider this lesson complete, he said. The human delegation walked out of the chamber in silence. Behind them, the alien representative sat in stunned shock as the implications began to sink in. Humanity was leaving. Not fleeing in panic, not surrendering in defeat, but walking away with dignity intact. And there was nothing the Council could do to stop them. Outside the chamber, Jake looked up at the stars visible through Nexus Prime's transparent dome. Somewhere out there, beyond the galactic rim, humanity would build something better, something based on equality rather than dominance. The Council had wanted to teach humanity its place. The lesson was over, and humanity had learned well. Their place was wherever they chose to make it. Captain Nina Brooks stood on the observation deck of the massive cargo ship Heavy Lifter, watching the systematic dismantling of New Atlanta Colony. Below her, thousands of humans worked with mechanical precision, breaking down 50 years of civilization piece by piece. The fusion reactor that had powered the city was already gone, its components packed safely in radiation-shielded containers. The atmospheric processors that had made the world breathable were being carefully dismantled and loaded onto transport ships. Even the orbital elevator that connected the surface to the space station was being taken apart section by section. "Ma'am," came a voice behind her. Nina turned to see Engineer Pete Collins, his face covered in sweat and dust from the demolition work. "The industrial sector is clear. All manufacturing equipment has been removed." Nina nodded and made a note on her data pad. New Atlanta had been one of humanity's major industrial worlds, producing everything from starship components to household goods. Now it would be empty rock within a week. "What about the Corvaxi ships at the system edge?" she asked. "Still watching," Pete replied. "But they're keeping their distance. Admiral Morrison's battle group has them nervous." 3 days earlier, a Corvaxi fleet had arrived expecting to find easy prey. Instead, they encountered human warships equipped with technology the Council had never seen. The brief skirmish ended with the Corvaxi retreating to a safe distance, their ships damaged and their pride wounded. Nina's communication device chimed. Dr. Sophie Miller's face appeared on the small screen. "Calling from the Colonial Science Center. Nina, we're implementing Protocol Scorched Earth on the research facilities," Sophie reported. "Every computer core is being wiped clean. All experimental data is being transferred to the evacuation ships. Protocol Scorched Earth was humanity's insurance policy. Nothing useful would be left behind for the aliens to find. No technology, no research data, no infrastructure that could benefit the species that had tried to enslave them." "What about the geological surveys?" Nina asked. "Deleted," Sophie replied. "The mineral location data, the terraforming projections, the climate modification research, all of it. They'll have to start from scratch if they try to use these worlds." Nina felt a grim satisfaction. The Council species had grown comfortable benefiting from human innovation through their so-called technology sharing agreements. Those days were over. Across the colony, similar scenes played out on 800 other worlds. Lieutenant Kyle Adams led covert operations on the Rim territories, extracting the alien species that humanity had been secretly helping. The Quillen, with their rabbit-like appearance and quick minds, had been kept at medieval technology levels by the Council. Under human guidance, they had secretly developed advanced mathematics and engineering. Kyle's team worked through the night, loading Quillen families onto unmarked transport ships. The aliens' large eyes reflected fear and hope in equal measure, as they left behind the only home they had ever known. "Are you certain about this path?" asked Elder Fintel, the Quillen leader. "Leaving everything familiar for the unknown?" "Elder," Kyle replied gently, "the Council planned to reset your technology level to Stone Age after dealing with humanity. Your choice is simple. Come with us to freedom or stay here and lose everything you've gained." Similar evacuations were happening across Council space. The aquatic Murdai were being extracted from their ocean worlds in specially designed life support ships. The crystalline Vectar, whose mathematics had inspired human quantum computer development, were carefully transported in temperature-controlled containers. Each extraction was a message to the Council. The species they had suppressed for millennia were choosing freedom over security. Back on New Atlanta, the last civilian transports were loading families and personal belongings. Children pressed their faces against viewing ports, watching their homes disappear into the cargo holds of massive ships. Adults stood quietly, their expressions mixing sadness with determination. Martha Cole clutched her daughter's hand as they boarded transport ship Liberty. They were leaving behind the house where 3 generations of her family had lived, the garden her grandmother had planted, the memorial grove where her parents were buried. "Mommy, will we ever come back?" 7-year-old Amy asked. Martha looked out at the empty streets of New Atlanta, at the bare foundations where buildings had stood, at the skeletal framework of the once proud city. "No, sweetheart, but we're going somewhere better." The evacuation wasn't just about removing people and equipment. Engineering teams worked around the clock to ensure the abandoned worlds would be uninhabitable for non-human life. Atmospheric mixers were subtly adjusted to create chemical compositions toxic to most council species. Soil treatments were applied that would make agriculture impossible for aliens with different biochemistry. Pete Collins supervised the final phase on New Atlanta. His teams planted automated defense systems throughout the empty city, not weapons designed to kill, but technologies that would make the world useless to occupiers. Sonic generators that would emit frequencies painful to alien hearing, electromagnetic fields that would disrupt non-human nervous systems, chemical dispensers that would make the air unbreathable for most council species. The message needs to be clear, Pete told his team. These worlds may be empty, but they're still ours. The economic impact rippled across the galaxy almost immediately. Human trade routes that had carried 30% of galactic commerce went silent. The luxury goods that the Zal hegemony sold primarily to human colonies found no buyers. Raw materials from human mining worlds stopped flowing to alien manufacturers. On Nexus Prime, emergency economic sessions convened as market values crashed. Trade Prince Velnash watched his personal fortune evaporate as human purchasing power vanished overnight. The carefully balanced galactic economy, dependent on human activity for stability, began to collapse. But the humans were methodical even in their withdrawal. They honored existing contracts with neutral species, while canceling all agreements with council members. They paid their debts in full while refusing to accept payment for goods already delivered. They left the galaxy as they had entered it, with their integrity intact. Nina stood on the observation deck of the heavy lifter as New Atlanta fell behind them. The planet looked oddly clean from orbit, like a fresh canvas waiting for new artists, but she knew no alien species would be able to use it. The automated systems Pete had installed would ensure that. Her communication device chimed with a message from Admiral Morrison. The evacuation was proceeding ahead of schedule. Most of the industrial worlds were already empty. The agricultural colonies would be clear within days. Earth itself would be the last to evacuate, taking with them the accumulated knowledge and culture of humanity's home world. "Captain," Pete said, joining her at the viewing port, "the Korvaxi fleet is moving. They're heading for New Atlanta." Nina smiled grimly. "Let them come. They'll find exactly what we promised them. Empty worlds with our name still on them." The heavy lifter jumped to faster-than-light speed, carrying the last pieces of New Atlanta toward humanity's new home beyond the galactic rim. Behind them, the Korvaxi fleet approached an empty world, eager to claim their prize. They would find bare rock, poisoned air, and automated systems designed to remind them that some things cannot be taken by force. They would learn that conquest without consent is just expensive grave digging. The galaxy watched as humanity pushed back their chair and left the table. The game was over, and the humans had taken their pieces with them. 6 months after the last human ship disappeared beyond the galactic rim, the silence had become deafening. Commander Ryan Clark floated in the observation bubble of the stealth ship Shadowrunner, watching a Korvaxi patrol fleet stumble through what used to be human space. The alien ships moved like lost children, their sensors sweeping desperately for any sign of the technology they had expected to inherit. Ryan's ship was one of dozens conducting deep reconnaissance missions back into Council territory. What they found was a galaxy tearing itself apart. "Sir," called Intelligence Officer Greg Stone from the communication station, "we're receiving another burst transmission from Central Command." The message was from Admiral Morrison, now operating from humanity's new capital in the Andromeda approach. The evacuation had been successful beyond their wildest hopes. Not only had humanity escaped intact, but they had brought with them representatives from 8 suppressed species. The new confederation was growing stronger every day, but the galaxy they had left behind was collapsing. Ryan studied the tactical display showing the current state of Council space. Red zones marked active conflicts, yellow areas showed economic collapse, and gray regions indicated communications blackouts. Nearly half the galaxy was now colored in crisis. "The hegemony of Zal is down to 30% of pre-evacuation trade volume," Greg reported, reading from the intelligence summary. "Their luxury goods markets have completely disappeared. 3 Zal trade worlds have declared independence and are trying to establish direct contact with neutral species." The economic devastation was even worse than humanity had predicted. The Council species had become so dependent on human commerce that removing it, caused a cascading failure throughout their economic systems. "What about the Korvaxi Empire?" Ryan asked. Greg's expression darkened. "Civil war. General Thakmor tried to occupy the abandoned human military worlds, but the automated defenses made them uninhabitable. When he couldn't deliver the promised conquests, his clan rivals saw weakness. There are now 5 separate Korvaxi factions fighting each other." Ryan nodded grimly. The Korvaxi culture was built on strength and victory. When their military leader failed to claim the human worlds, it triggered a succession crisis that split their entire empire. The communication array crackled with an incoming transmission. Ambassador Carol Price appeared on screen, calling from the hidden human base at Sanctuary Nebula. Carol led humanity's diplomatic intelligence operations, monitoring the political situation across Council space. "Ryan," she said, "we've got a situation developing on the Quillen homeworld. Council investigators arrived 3 days ago and found nothing." The screen switched to show orbital footage of the Quillen homeworld. The planet looked pristine from space with no signs of technology or civilization. But the Council knew there should have been a thriving medieval society of several million rabbit-like aliens. "They found empty cities," Carol continued, "abandoned farms, tools left in workshops as if everyone just stopped what they were doing and walked away. The only thing left was a message beacon in orbit. The beacon's message played an accented galactic standard. 'We thank the Council for their protection, but we choose our own path now.' "Do not follow us," Ryan felt a surge of pride. The Quillen had successfully evacuated to human territory, but they had done it so cleanly that even the Council couldn't figure out how. All they knew was that another species had vanished without trace. "That's not the only one," Carol added. "The Murdai ocean worlds are empty too. Same with the Vectar crystal formations. 8 species that were under human protection have just disappeared." The implications sent shockwaves through the Council. For the first time in galactic history, entire civilizations were choosing to abandon their homeworlds rather than accept Council authority. The message was clear. Given the choice between Council protection and freedom, these species chose freedom. Greg pulled up another intelligence report. "Sir, the political situation on Nexus Prime is getting desperate. Prime Arbiter Velthon has called 7 emergency sessions in the last month. The member species are openly blaming each other for the current crisis. The careful balance of power that had maintained galactic peace for centuries was crumbling. With humanity gone, the old rivalries between Council species were resurging. The Korvaxi blamed the Zal for economic manipulation. The Zal blamed the Korvaxi for military incompetence. Smaller species accused both of causing the human exodus through their greed. They're forming new alliances." Greg continued. "The Trilaxian Consortium has cut all ties with the Council and declared neutrality. The Wasari Republic is demanding reparations for economic losses. 6 minor species have formed something called the Independent Systems Alliance." Ryan studied the data with growing amazement. The galaxy was reorganizing itself along completely new lines. Species that had been Council members for millennia were abandoning the alliance. New power blocks were forming based on mutual interest rather than hierarchical dominance. The communication array chimed again. This time it was Dr. Alex Webb, calling from the xenoarchaeology expedition in the unexplored regions beyond the Rim. Alex's discovery had shaken humanity's understanding of galactic history. "Ryan," Alex said, his voice excited despite the serious implications, "we've found evidence of at least 12 previous civilizations in this region. All of them possessed technology far beyond current galactic standards, and all of them vanished from the main galaxy thousands of years ago. The ancient ruins told a story that made the current crisis seem inevitable. Advanced species had been disappearing from the galaxy for millennia, always just as they reached a level of development that threatened Council control. The pattern is always the same," Alex explained. "A species develops too quickly, becomes too independent, starts helping other species advance. Then they're classified as a destabilizing influence. Then they vanish from the galactic record." "What happened to them?" Ryan asked. "Some fought and were destroyed. Others were absorbed and assimilated. But a few like us chose to leave. This entire region beyond the Rim is populated by the descendants of species that refuse to be controlled." The revelation changed everything. Humanity wasn't alone in their choice. They were part of a pattern of resistance that stretched back through galactic history. Back in Council space, the situation continued to deteriorate. The Korvaxi reclamation expedition to New Atlanta had been a disaster. The automated defenses didn't kill the alien soldiers, but they made the planet uninhabitable for non-human physiology. After losing 3 landing parties to atmospheric poisoning and neural disruption, the Korvaxi abandoned their attempt to claim human worlds. Now those worlds hung in space like silent monuments. Empty but clearly still owned, protected by technology the Council couldn't understand or overcome. The final straw came when the Council attempted to contact humanity directly. For 6 months, they had maintained their official position that the human exodus was a temporary tantrum that would soon end, but as the economic and political crisis deepened, desperation set in. Prime Arbiter Velthon himself recorded a message to humanity's last known coordinates. The translation computers worked overtime to remove the arrogance from his words, leaving only a simple request for dialogue. The response came back within hours. This frequency is no longer monitored. Ryan watched the intelligence reports stream in from across the galaxy. Emergency economic councils, military mobilizations, political upheavals, and social unrest. The carefully ordered galactic civilization was fracturing along lines no one had anticipated. "Sir," Greg said quietly, "there's one more thing. We're detecting massive population movements in several council systems. Entire worlds are going dark, just like the Quillen homeworld." Ryan leaned forward. "More species are leaving?" "It looks that way. The pattern matches what happened with the human evacuation, systematic shutdown of infrastructure, population disappearing in organized waves. Someone is teaching the suppressed species how to escape." Ryan smiled. Humanity might have left the galaxy, but their influence was still spreading. The idea of freedom was contagious, and the Council's former subjects were learning that they had choices. The galaxy that had tried to control humanity was discovering that control was an illusion. When species chose to leave rather than submit, there was nothing the powerful could do to stop them. The silence that followed humanity's departure wasn't empty. It was full of possibilities. 2 years after humanity's exodus, Captain Sam Parker guided the stealth ship Ghost of Terra through the debris field that had once been the Korvaxi Third Fleet. The massive warships floated dead in space, their hulls torn open by weapons that bore the signature of Zal hegemony energy cannons. The Kaidi galaxy had become a battlefield. Sam's reconnaissance mission was one of dozens sending intelligence back to Admiral Morrison in the Andromeda approach. What they found was a civilization in complete collapse. The ordered galaxy that had existed for millennia was tearing itself apart without humanity, to serve as a common focus for their fears. "Captain," called Communications Officer Lisa Wang from her station, "I'm picking up distress signals from at least 12 different sources. It looks like the Wasari Republic and the Trilaxian Consortium are fighting over the Kepler mining worlds. Those worlds had been human territory until the evacuation. Now they were empty real estate that former council species were killing each other to claim. The irony wasn't lost on Sam. The aliens were destroying, themselves fighting over empty rocks that humanity had voluntarily abandoned. The tactical display showed the current state of what used to be council space. The Korvaxi Empire had fractured into 7 warring clans. The Zal hegemony had split into corporate factions fighting proxy wars. 3 former council species had gone extinct in the chaos, their homeworlds now silent monuments to the price of political collapse. But the most shocking intelligence came from the Outer Rim territories. Species that the Council had kept suppressed for thousands of years were emerging as spacefaring civilizations, seemingly overnight. The Murdai had developed underwater cities and submarine starships. The crystalline Vectar had built geometric space stations that defied known physics. Other species that had vanished from their homeworlds were appearing in deep space with technology that rivaled the former council members. Sam's mission took an unexpected turn when long-range sensors detected a single ship approaching from the direction of Nexus Prime. The BO vessel's design was unfamiliar, clearly civilian, and it was broadcasting diplomatic immunity codes. "Captain," Lisa reported, "the ship is requesting permission to come alongside. They claim to have a representative of the Moderate Coalition aboard." The Moderate Coalition was a new political group formed from species that had opposed Resolution 2847 Alpha. They had tried to prevent the ultimatum that drove humanity away. but had been overruled by the militant factions. Now those militant factions were extinct or scattered, leaving the moderates to inherit a ruined galaxy. "Grant permission," Sam ordered, "but keep weapons ready." The diplomatic ship was small and clearly unarmed. As it drew closer, Sam could see that its hull bore scorch marks from energy weapons, evidence of the dangerous journey through what had become a war zone. An hour later, Sam found himself face to face with Senator Linda Hayes, a member of the Deltan species that had consistently voted against aggressive council policies. Linda's people were humanoid but taller, with silver skin and large, expressive eyes. Those eyes now held a mixture of desperation and hope. "Captain Parker," Linda said in carefully pronounced standard English, "I bring greetings from the Coalition of Moderate Species and a formal request for dialogue with humanity's government." Sam kept his expression neutral. "The human government doesn't exist in this galaxy anymore, Senator. We made our choice clear 2 years ago." "I understand," Linda replied, "but the galaxy has learned hard lessons since then. We come not to demand or threaten, but to ask for help and to offer our deepest apologies." Linda activated a holographic projector, showing the current state of galactic civilization. The display was horrifying. Empty worlds, dead space stations, entire star systems gone dark. The Council's attempt to maintain order through dominance had collapsed completely when their primary target removed itself from the equation. 17 billion beings have died in the conflicts, Linda said quietly. Entire civilizations have been wiped out. The galaxy we thought we were protecting has destroyed itself. Sam studied the data with growing shock. The casualty numbers were staggering. Species that had existed for millions of years were gone. Worlds that had harbored life for epochs were now sterile rocks. "What do you want from us?" Sam asked. "Nothing," Linda replied, and Sam could hear the sincerity in her voice. "We know humanity owes us nothing. We understand that we brought this catastrophe on ourselves, but we also know that you represent the only stable civilization left. Other species are learning of your confederation beyond the rim. They're seeking passage to join you." Linda's projector showed new intelligence that made Sam's breath catch. Massive evacuation fleets were forming in the ruins of Council space. Not just the species that humanity had secretly helped, but others who had learned of the human confederation and wanted to escape the galactic civil war. 300 billion beings across 47 species have requested asylum, Linda continued. Not all of them were council members. Some were neutral species caught in the crossfire. Others were junior partners who opposed the resolution against humanity but were forced to comply. The numbers were staggering. The human confederation beyond the rim was growing into something unprecedented in galactic history, a true alliance of equals rather than a hierarchy of dominance. "Senator," Sam said carefully, "I can relay your message to Admiral Morrison, but I should warn you that humanity's position hasn't changed. We will not return to council space. We will not resume the old relationships, and we will not help rebuild what you chose to tear down." "We understand," Linda replied. "We're not asking you to return. We're asking if we can follow you into exile." The transmission to Admiral Morrison took 6 hours to reach the Andromeda approach, and another 6 for the response to return. When it came, Morrison's instructions were clear. Offer the Coalition a choice. Sam met with Linda again in the Ghost of Terra's conference room. The senator looked exhausted from the journey and the stress of representing the last hope for galactic peace. "Admiral Morrison's response is simple," Sam explained. "Any species willing to completely abandon council space and commit to true equality is welcome to petition for membership in the Human Confederation." "But there are conditions." Linda leaned forward eagerly. "What conditions?" "First, complete abandonment of all territory in council space. No return, no claims, no attempts to maintain influence in the old galaxy. Second, acceptance of Confederation law based on individual rights rather than species hierarchy. Third, contribution to the common defense and development of Confederation territory." Linda nodded quickly. "Those terms are acceptable to most coalition species. But what about the others? The ones still fighting over the ruins?" Sam's expression hardened. "They made their choice when they supported Resolution 2847 Alpha. The door is closed to any species that participated in the attempt to enslave humanity." Over the following months, the greatest migration in galactic history began. Entire civilizations loaded their populations onto massive evacuation fleets and followed the breadcrumb trail humanity had left to the galactic rim. Not all made the journey. Many were destroyed by hostile forces or lost to the dangers of deep space travel. But enough survived to transform the human confederation into something magnificent. The Andromeda approach became a crossroads of civilizations, where former enemies worked together as equals to build something better than what they had left behind. The final message to the old galaxy came from Captain Emma Foster, broadcasting from the Confederation capital ship New Horizon. Emma had volunteered to deliver humanity's farewell to the civilization that had tried to control them. To the species of the former Galactic Council, Emma said, her voice carrying across all communication frequencies, "You taught us that the galaxy was not big enough for species that refused to know their place. You were right. We have found a larger galaxy." The message continued with coordinates, not to human territory but to the edge of the galactic rim where refugee fleets were gathering. A final offer for those brave enough to abandon everything for a chance at freedom. The door remains open for those who seek equality over hierarchy, cooperation over domination, Emma announced. For the rest of you, enjoy the paradise you have created. The transmission ended with images of Earth's former location in Council star charts, now marked simply as Restricted Zone. The automated defenses humanity had left behind ensured that their homeworld would remain forever empty, a monument to the species that chose dignity over submission. Back in the ruins of Council space, the fighting continued. Species that had once ruled the galaxy now battled over scraps of territory and resources. The careful order that had maintained peace for millennia was gone, replaced by chaos and destruction. But beyond the galactic rim, something new was growing. A confederation built on choice rather than coercion, on cooperation rather than domination. The species that had found the courage to walk away from the old galaxy were building a better one. The Council had wanted to teach humanity its place. The lesson was complete, and its consequences would echo through the cosmos for generations to come. Sometimes the most powerful response to tyranny was not resistance, but simply refusing to participate in the system at all. Humanity had pushed back their chair and left the table. The game was